But isn't that really the question you should be asking your advisor is, are you going to be there for me in my worst hour or my final hour?
Better yet, how are you going to be there for me? Ask that question. How do you show up for your clients in their hardest times, in their most challenging financial situation? Hey, what's this whole Wealth Journey podcast thing all about?
It's a podcast for entrepreneurs where we're trying to help them connect the meaning with their money.
Who are you?
Jim Gebhardt.
Oh, I'm Matthew Grishman, and we're a couple of financial guys having a not-so-traditional financial conversation called The Whole Wealth Journey. Here we go. So what are we grateful for today?
We haven't talked about this in a while, and Lindsay and Jeff are going to love how I ramble on for this another 8 or 12 minutes, but no, I'm not. You and I are big believers in the concept of a team. And that team is, I don't just mean here at Gebhardt Group, but it's the extended team of all the supporting cast of professionals that help us.
Okay.
Personally, professionally.
Sure.
If you have a mow and blow guy, that's somebody on your team. If you have a housekeeper that comes, right, or who's that comes periodically, that's someone else on your team. I love my who's and I love my team. And I've had the same relationship with a chiropractor for over 20 years, probably closer to 25 now. And it's funny because I forget, oh, I should go see Earl. And this morning, we're a little later in studio today, but I thank you everybody for your flexibility because I went in for some tissue work with this nagging shoulder that I have. And the combination of Eric's tissue work for an hour, and then this crazy new technology called, I think it's called STEM wave, which is this sound wave technology that breaks up adhesions and all this. And he was going over my arm with this wonder wand, like I was trying to get ready to pitch in the NLCS tonight. And it hasn't felt this good in quite some time.
Nice.
So I am grateful for the concept of team and the fact that there are different professionals I can lean on as my life shifts and changes. And really what that all comes down to is a level of relationship that I've had with everyone in his office, from Tina, who is his scheduler and receptionist, who we were talking about, our son Jack, who's in studying abroad right now. And she remembers him coming in a stroller. That's how long we've been a client or a customer of this particular chiropractor. So this sense of relationship, the sense of team, the sense of having who's in my life to support me is something I'm incredibly grateful for today.
Nice. Nice.
Do I look taller?
You do.
Okay.
You are sitting a little higher in studio today than you normally do. So it must be that shoulder is back a little bit.
Yeah.
Very
exactly.
nice.
The blades are contracted.
Very nice. Well done. Very well done.
And et vous, mon frère, what is on the gratitude?
I had something very specific, but after you sharing yours, I'm going to say I have two things then I'll be grateful for. One of which,
Lindsay's going to love that.
One of which I will continue on with team, because really this is an extension of what we've been doing now in studio for quite some time, is this idea of who, not how. I am so grateful for all the who's as well. And the conversation I got to have, last episode was coming fresh off a family wedding in Vermont. And one of the youngsters in the family got me in the corner. And he was sharing, I'm grateful for the opportunity of all these who's, not how's in life being with me that day, because I got to have a conversation with one of the youngsters in the family who's struggling right now. He's a young man in his mid-20s trying to figure out life. And with tears in his eyes in the corner of this wedding, just expressing incredible amounts of frustration to me about, I'm 26 years old and I'm supposed to be figuring out life and figuring out how to do this and how to pay my bills and how to get a job and how to advance my career and how to meet a woman and fall in love and start a family. And I'm like really stressed out that none of this is happening the way I want it to. And I got to share with him the secret. Something that I wish somebody would have said to me when I was 26 years old.
You mean the movie? The Secret?
The Secret.
Yeah, that's what I mean. The movie, the book.
Yeah, no, not that stuff. I know the book and the movie and all that, but I'm talking about the real secret.
Oh, good.
The real secret to life, which for a young man who's trying to be successful, I think the secret to life is who, not how. I really believe that life is very challenging. Life is very hard. And I know as a 53-year-old man, I can't do life all by myself. I couldn't. So we have found all these incredible who's. And when I shared this with this young man in my family, this concept that he's allowed to go ask people for help, right? Rather than you figuring out how, there might be a who that knows how, so that you don't have to stress about this. And it's okay to do that. In fact, it's not just okay if you think of the most successful people in the world. Let's just pick on Steve Jobs for a minute. Why does he wear the same black shirt every day? Why does he hate buttons? Because buttons take too much time. He wears the same, he used to wear before he died, he used to wear the same black mock turtleneck every day.
I hope he had a few of them.
Because he did have a few of them, but the fact that he would spend any of his time trying to figure out what to wear today was just a waste of his time and of his genius. So when we get really clear and just being able to have this conversation with this kid, what I'm grateful for is seeing the light turn on in his eyes. Wait, what? Huh? It was way cool. So I'm super grateful for that. The second thing I'm super grateful for is another secret. It's called Vermont maple syrup.
Gratitude is gratitude, but in the context of the conversation you were having with was it your cousin?
This is on the in-law side of my family.
Sure.
This is one of the young men. Yes. A nephew through marriage. We'll call him that.
So this goes to my theory around extrapolating, and that people can only extrapolate in one direction.
They can only see in the direction they're going. The blind
spot that if they're struggling, they can only see struggle. If they're thriving, they can only see thriving. They can't see a plateau. They can't see a decline. And Beth and I talk about this because we have those kids. We don't have a 26-year-old, but we have a 24, almost 25, and a 22, and they're through college. And they're right where that young man is in terms of trying to figure all this stuff out. How? I remember it. I remember when I moved to California. How am I going to make friends? I knew no one in California when I was 23. How am I going to meet the woman of my dreams and build a life together? How am I going to ever make enough blessed money to be able to afford a gym membership, let alone a house in California? The concept that we talk a lot about with our kids to the point where their eyes roll up in their head is the fact that life is not a smooth path. It is not a 45-degree trajectory up and to the right on the chart. It's a squiggle line that goes up and down, and sometimes you hit the old Candyland slide and you go backwards, and then you got to go back up the next mountain only to find out that you get to the top of that mountain and there's another series of mountains to deal with.
Sure. Are you saying life's not easy?
I'm saying life's not easy, but life is not a smooth line of upward positive progression all the time. If you and I were to look back at the lowest points of our life, those are the greatest things that have ever happened to us.
Absolutely. They happened for us.
Not at the time. No. They were miserable at the time.
Yeah.
I used to lie awake at night in the latter part of 2008 and early part of 2009 asking the good Lord to take me.
Sure.
Because I could not see my way out of the financial strife I was in.
Back then, he was your who, not how.
Yeah, and he wasn't answering the phone.
It wasn't your time.
The answering machine was full.
Exactly.
So anyway, thanks for that riff. I had to just let that out.
I think it's part of what we're talking about here today, episode 166. This is what we do our work for. This is if there's a top of a mountain in financial planning land before you go climb the next mountain, it's this. I don't know. It's all the work that we've been doing up until this point in financial planning land of helping people get clear on where they've been, on where they are, and now where they're going, and getting them off into this idea of now living this life. The more of those hard things that happened that we're able to sit down and look at and realize how did these happen for us really sets the stage for some real meaning in this next Life 3.0, Live Your Why, what's next?
So they're in the rocket ship.
Oh, in the fourth dimension.
And they are ready to hit they're on the launch pad in the rocket ship. And the old guide wire or whatever, that thing that used to fall away when we would watch it on ABC or whatever it was.
Sure.
We've hit the 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and they're launching.
Yeah, this is the point in the financial planning process where all the planning has been, I don't want to say complete, but in a sense, the blueprint has been drawn. The blueprint is complete, and now it's a matter of launching and actually doing what the blueprint says. We talked we had a nice discussion in the last episode about these different money barrels that take that number of ours, right? Which you and I talk about as the wealth gap, right? Instead of what's your number, what's your wealth gap, right? How much do you have versus how much do you need to support all of these incredible things that you want to do in life, right? Who you want to be, what you want to do, what you want to have. What does that look like? And what's the difference between what you have and what you need to make that happen? And assuming we can help a client close that wealth gap with the sale of a business one day, now it's a matter of structuring that asset that closes the wealth gap into different time frames of when we need that. Once that blueprint is drawn, now it's a matter of hitting go and releasing that person into that life 3.0 to go live it.
And in all of your experience with the hundreds of clients that you've witnessed do this, what would you say is the number one thing they do once they either exit the business or, in the more conventional sense, retire?
The number one thing they do.
Yeah, what's the most common thing people do once they either retire or sell the business and they're officially out and they're no longer on a 3-year earn out or something like this?
On our watch?
Yeah.
They go travel.
Bingo.
They go do something. They do what Hank and Jill, dad and mom, are doing right now. They're out exploring the world, seeing the world, using some of that money and time. Time
is the big one.
Yeah, to go do.
They've had this pent up, maybe perhaps not in the case of Hank and Jill, but I'm thinking of several clients that have one as of October 4th, put a big bow around it, and he didn't own a business, but he was C-suite in a publicly traded company, and that was his final day. Also happened to be his birthday.
Nice.
And they depart on a big 2-weeker to Europe that they've been eager to do for years and years. And this pent-up demand to go be, do, have, whatever it is, that we see over and over again. And that's why in our planning process, we really want to look at, as we talked about in the last episode, this concept of those in a conventional 30-year retirement. May you be so blessed to have a 30-year retirement, that in that 10-year period in the beginning, that in our white paper from 100 years ago was the go-go phase.
Sure.
Still is the go-go phase.
Absolutely.
And that's where I always used to bark at my superior officers at Merrill Lynch, Pierce, Fenner, Smith, where you need 70 to 80%, Bob, of your current pre-tax income to live on when you're retired.
That's still pretty common philosophy, dude. The shit that I'm reading,
and I used to just push back on that all the time. You need to tell me the first 3 years of retirement, 5 years of retirement, you're not going to be spending almost twice as much money, because when you're retired, how many Saturdays are there?
There's still only 4 Saturdays a month, but
when you're retired,
every day's a Saturday.
Exactly.
Right.
Hence your ability to be out doing, consuming, not necessarily you're going to go spend your way around your retirement, but if you're going to be doing things, a lot of times those require money. So we are big advocates for this.
Yeah.
We're not roadblocks for this. We want the clients to go use the money and live their why, because they now are crystal clear on what their why is.
Yes.
And those are some of the happiest, wait for it, postcards we ever get. And I request, when clients tell us about a big trip, we hope you have the most amazing time. And if we're really on top of it, Lindsay will do one of her super magical, we'll find out the name of the hotel or whatever, and we'll have something special delivered to the room. It's one of our love languages is gift giving.
Sure.
And I say, I just have one request. And there's always like a little tension that enters the room, and they like, oh, what's he going to ask? Like a box of truffles or something? No. Send us a postcard.
Yeah. And you can still get those.
You can.
Yeah.
The bigger problem is getting the damn stamp.
Oh, harder to find.
That's harder. Now, if they're at a hotel, perhaps the concierge still has a little stash of stamps like that. But anyway, that's one of my favorite little things, is to request a postcard, and then some rando postcard will come in the mail from Amsterdam.
Sure.
And you're like, what the? Oh, I know who this is, right? Yes. So it's a way for us to stay connected when they're out living their why.
Absolutely.
And one of the best examples I can ever share about this isn't even a client example, but I'm going to pick on our dear teammate, Lindsay. When she first came on board 3 years ago, we were talking about scheduling appointments with clients. and we're obviously passionate about spending time with our clients. And I said, it's going to be very difficult for you to get our retired clients to come into the office. Geez, don't you have that backwards? Is that dyslexic or something?
No.
You mean the working folks are going to be the hard ones to get into the office? I said, au contraire, mon frère. That's not the case. It's exactly the other way around. And the longer they've been retired and the longer they've been a client, the harder it's going to be to get them to come into the office because they're comfortable, they're clear, and they're confident. And that is like the biggest vote of confidence I could ever have in what we do, is the fact that if you've been a client of ours for a long time, but you're retired for a long time, we're like almost like begging you to come into the office.
My brother-in-law, who I spent time with a few episodes ago when we were in Vermont at this wedding, recently retired, took a little package from the federal government and decided to retire. And his comment to me was, I don't know, because I asked him, how's it going? Are you figuring out Life 3.0? And he looked at me and he said, I don't know how I ever had time for work.
Bingo.
I'm doing all the things I love to do.
Bingo.
I'm riding my bike. He's doing another Ireland golf trip. I was trying to listen for some of the Karnowskis and the names that you've thrown around to me a couple
Barnacles
times. Sure, absolutely. And he's doing all these incredible things. And he gets to sleep late and he's not missing out on anything. Now he's taken the time to plan and figure out how
Life 3.0 is full.
Yes, Life 3.0 for him is very full.
Beautiful.
And I might imagine, given what he was sharing with me, a little more costly than 70 to 80% of his last working year.
That would be, I'd place a pretty good wager on that.
Yeah. That's one area I would say within our industry when we're looking at helping people prepare for living their why and living what's next. That's one place in our industry where the academics don't necessarily meet the practical. You and I have always been academically trained to help people live less life in retirement than they do when they're working, but it's just not the case. It's the opposite. That practical experience has shown us it's the opposite. I was talking with Hank and Jill this morning, who are on another trip, and while they're on the trip, they've planned their next 2 trips.
Yeah.
With the same tour company because they're having so much fun with it that they're doing another one in the spring and they're doing another one next fall.
Yeah.
And they've booked both of them already.
Awesome.
These are not inexpensive trips.
No.
On top of what it costs them to live a day-to-day life.
Yeah.
They weren't doing this during their working years.
I couldn't be happier to hear endless stories about that, because that to me is really what the meaning of the money is all about.
Yes.
Is out, whatever your definition of why is. I'm thinking of a client that used to live down in the Bay Area, up in Marin County. The fires that we had there a few years ago, he didn't lose his house in the fire, but it was very disconcerting. And he moved to Reno and gave Reno a try. Wasn't his jam, and moved to Oregon. And now when I talk with him, he is living his absolute best life. He's near family. He has friends up there. He's living his absolute best life in his mid to late 60s. And it gives me so much joy to talk with him about it and to just be curious about, what are you up to? I go out to the beach quite a bit, or I'll just hop in the car and I'll go up to Bend and I'll go trumps around in the parks up there. And it's so fun because in his case, he also worked for a corporation for many years, several corporations, but then hit this classic phase of retirement. So he's not an entrepreneur per se, but we could and should tell more and more stories about people that we've worked with that are outliving their why, because to me, it's so inspiring on what is possible. And I remember when we first started working with him, he wasn't exactly sure, like, how's this going to work? He's an engineer on top of it, right? Sure. They tend to want to go to the 7th decimal place on everything.
Sure. With
certainty and facts and rigor. And this is going to be a little bit of a float. Like, you're going to float a little, you're going to try it on, and if it's not the right vibe, you're going to move.
Yeah.
That's hard for engineers.
Sure. And that's part of accepting this part of the process. Like when we were talking before about the blueprint is built and now we go out and live our why, understanding that blueprint might change. This is what's cool about financial planning land, is that once the plan is designed and you're out living it, it's going to change. One of my favorite client experiences, and you were there the whole time we were doing this, was our clients who were both top of their career in New York City, in their 40s, hit the wall, burnout city, didn't want to do the corporate thing anymore, gave up everything in New York.
Of New York, Manhattan.
Yeah. And in their industry, they were leaders in their industry, and they decided to cash out, move to the beach in San Diego, and let their inner artist come out. They were both in corporate roles, but really wanted to give that all up for a quieter life, surfing, simpler, being the creatives that they are.
Yeah.
And being introduced to them through that process, and they were pretty sure and pretty clear on what they thought their life was going to look like till they got to San Diego. And what was it? Within a year of knowing them, they were both in corporate jobs and within their industries and miserable, really unhappy.
You would call that, in financial sobriety land, you would call that a relapse.
Yes, they did. They had a little bit of a relapse.
A corporate relapse.
They were going down a direction. It wasn't quite coming to fruition. And before they took a pause to reset and recalibrate, fear took over, and they went right back into their old ways and found jobs. Well, it was probably another year into that process before the phone rang, and we got a call from her about, I can't do this anymore. I'm upset with myself for falling back into this, and I really need some help because I don't know what I'm doing and I can't do this anymore. I'm burning out. That's where we got to go back to the drawing board to redesign another blueprint.
Matthew and Jim.
Yes.
Let's go.
And this is
Roll
where
up the sleeves.
This is where helping somebody figure out what their superpower is to get them away. We talked about this in the last episode. If you're willing to get away from the job titles, the industry, and all that kind of stuff, and just really hone in on what is that superpower, what is that unique ability, then a whole world of possibilities shows up. And in this case, for this person had an incredible, unique ability in this world we called creative curiosity. And when those words came out of the conversations that we had between the emails we were sending to people in her past and getting some help from them as far as flushing out what the superpowers were and looking at all these different words and concepts, and then boom, this idea of creative curiosity comes up. And all of a sudden now, we've got somebody living their why, painting and creating and having art shows and literally being able to make a living doing this, stepping in her why. Absolutely. It's been incredible to watch. Now, it didn't happen smooth and seamlessly.
Come on.
And it didn't
I thought
happen.
We guaranteed that.
We try, but money back guarantee. It came with some false starts. It came with some challenges. It came with some pivots. It came with some failure. And that's the plight of the entrepreneur, figuring out life 3.0 and getting out and living your why. You may have this incredible blueprint, and you might get out there and go, this isn't what I wanted it to be.
Isn't that a lovely segue? Because when you were telling that story, I was in my head with a different story of clients that we've been working with for 10 years that own a home on the National Historic Register in one of the Bay Area communities. It's down on the water. It's a Victorian. And for the 10 years that we've been working with them, I've been running point a little bit more, but you know them certainly very well. This was the dream, was we are going to restore and bring this old Victorian back to its full glory, fully remodeled, right off to the sunset in our retirement years, enjoying that. And a couple of Octobers ago, no, not a couple of Octobers, last October, they called and said, hey, we want to come in for another financial planning update. Some things have changed. And they didn't go into it, but Lindsay got them on the calendar, and they came in and they said, that one radio button in the software that changes the state of where you live, we're California residents now, but we want to go in to see the plan exactly.
Slow down. Within our financial planning software.
Oh, what did I say?
Oh, you were going way too fast. So within the financial planning software, we have a radio button that allows us to toggle on and off whether you're going to stay in the highest tax state of the world called California or move somewhere else.
Thank you for the slowdown.
Yes, you got it. Okay. I just wanted to make sure I was picking up what you're putting down.
They remembered that little radio button.
Oh, that's impressive.
He's an engineer. And what had happened was, it doesn't matter. They went to Florida on a vacation. And while they were there, they came across this community, this town, that's like one of these kind of new Florida towns that they do that there, apparently.
Sure.
not only did they fall in love, but they bought a rental property that they were then going to live in temporarily while they figured out how they make the move there. So the purpose of the meeting, talking about their financial plan was changing, was they were going to abandon this lifelong vision of restoring this home on the National Historic Register, abort, absolutely go in a completely different direction with their plan, and they wanted to see the viability of all that. They wanted to be able to see in the big Jumbotron TV in our conference room how this was going to impact. By selling this, moving here, buying, granted, it was a less expensive home.
It's Florida.
It's Florida, yeah. But we've got dozens and dozens of those stories where the best laid plans, things change. And that's the beauty of our process, is that we're ready for it. And actually, it excites us to be able to help the client have a new vision of clarity and confidence around this new path, whatever it may be.
You know what? These stories are really, I think, showing the tribe. I don't want to tell you, if you're listening, what you should be getting from this, but I'm going to tell you what I'm getting from this. What I'm starting to see is where the real value of having a relationship like this comes into play. Whether your relationship winds up being more intimately with us, or you have an advisor in your life already, and this show is just supplementing that relationship and giving you ideas to bring to your advisor, which by all means, if that's the case, I am thrilled, because that's what we're trying to do here. What you're starting to see in these stories is where the real value, once the planning work is done and the asset structuring is in place, the real value of the relationship comes into these kinds of conversations, so much more than the ongoing asset management. If you're sitting at this point in a planning process, you've created all of the wealth you're ever going to need to create. That's not what you need the help of an advisor for, right? You don't need an advisor to make you wealthier.
How much are you going to make me, nephew?
Exactly. That's the wrong. If you are asking a financial advisor, how much are you going to make me? If I give you money today, what are you going to invest it in and what are you going to make me? That's the wrong question to be asking, especially if you're on this show and you're an entrepreneur and you're part of this tribe. You, I can tell you now, are an exquisite wealth creator. That's not what you need an advisor for. It's knowing. It's what you and I were talking before the show started today about my very first client that ever walked into my office and your very first client that ever walked into your office, and the very same conversation we had, which is, why are you hiring me? I have no experience.
You have shoes older than me.
You are good at making money. You're showing me this incredible portfolio. Why are you hiring me when I'm very obviously not as qualified at portfolio structuring as you are, Mrs. Client? In my case, that was Eleanor. And she looked me dead in the eye and said, I'm not hiring you for what you can do for me today. You're going to learn how to become a good advisor, and I'm going to teach you. But it's way down the road when I have some of the most important financial decisions that I need to make, that you're going to be prepared to help me, and you're going to be here for me to do that.
So the beauty of that is that she had the vision and the wherewithal to invest in a relationship with you.
Before any of this gray hair on my chinny chin.
Exactly.
Because she knew the value. So I always give credit to my dear friend, Eleanor Brady, my very first client. May she rest in peace. 96 years old, pitched a complete game and then some. She taught me how to be an advisor. As a client, she taught me how to be an advisor, because she was so generous and so giving and so caring, but she also knew that, hey, I'm going to invest in this youngster, and because one day I'm going to need him to help me make some really important financial decisions. And I'm incredibly grateful for her teaching me how to do this job and how to do it the right way and how to know how to help people ask me the right questions, which is not about how much are you going to make me.
Again, I'm in my head with my stories.
Sure.
And to me, the question, I think, really, this is some clarity. I'm sure it's been bubbling around in my head for a while. But are you going to be there for me in my worst hour?
Oh, yeah.
Or perhaps my final hour?
Yeah.
And the number of times that I've been in a conference room with clients and one of the spouses, generally the partner that kind of runs the money part of life, right?
Sure.
Now, if anything ever happens to me, your phone call is to Jim or to Matthew or to the office, right? It gets me every time that happens because there's a gravity to that. There's a weight to that. But isn't that really the question you should be asking your advisor is, are you going to be there for me in my worst hour or my final hour?
Better yet, how are you going to be there for me? Ask that question. How do you show up for your clients in their hardest times, in their most challenging financial situations? You really want to get to know how an advisor is going to be there for you. That's what you want to get to know about them. How are you prepared to show up for me and for my family when we are going to be faced with one of the 5 Ds at some point in our life?
Exactly.
Right? When we face death, when we face divorce, when we face disability, disagreement, or distress. How are you capable? How does your firm, how do you show up in those situations? Because that is the value of having this kind of relationship, is knowing that there is a family-like CFO, this incredibly intimate advisory relationship that is going to be there for you. I have a friend right now. I'm going to speak with her at 3:30 today after my adventures in cardiology. I've got my semi-annual cardiology appointment later today. And then an old friend of mine who 15 years ago, when she was sitting in my office with her husband, would not hire me because she doesn't believe friends and business should mix. Hey, that's an old school East Coast kind of thing. I get it.
And you should have accounts at 17 different banks and 14 brokerage firms and diversify through institutions.
Family and friends should not be doing business together because it's going to screw up the relationship. This is the one place that I looked at this friend 15 years ago and said, in 99% of the world we live in today, you're absolutely right. But when it comes to this, money, family, this is some of the most intimate stuff you're ever going to deal with, some of the most important decisions you're ever going to make, and you want to give that to a stranger and not somebody that you have an incredibly intimate, close relationship with? And at that point, that was fine. Let's fast forward 15 years later. Unfortunately, those friends of mine have gotten a divorce.
And life's very different.
And life is very different and very difficult. They split the retirement money. And I got a phone call from her last week freaking out because she feels like she made a monumental mistake in dealing with the 401k, and now there's tax penalties happening. And boy, I should have called you sooner. And she's starting to see the value of this kind of relationship. Granted, the whole conversation started with, I really don't want to pay. The money's over at one of those big companies, Fidelity, that big Boston-based company. And she was explaining to me how I don't want to pay fees for stuff I don't need, but I really could use some help right now.
Do you think she has car insurance?
I'm guessing she probably does.
Do you think she has homeowners insurance?
Probably. I would imagine she owns a home.
Yeah.
I don't think legally in California you can own a home or drive a car without having those two insurance policies.
Then
which
we should really start a lobbying effort in the great state of
I was going to say,
California.
You should not be allowed.
Must have a financial advisor.
If you're going to have a retirement account, by law, you should be required to have the insurance policy of a financial advisor to bounce your decisions off of.
Well, start a funding mechanism for that.
Oh, Gavin, are you listening?
Yeah,
absolutely.
I get it. I like paying I get an automated text from my insurance company. We have 5 cars in our family right now. We are a small used car dealership.
You guys are down.
One home, 5 cars.
Yeah, but there's 6 of you.
Somebody has to take a bike.
How dare them?
That bill every month, I have to turn the auto notification that, this is going to be sucked out of your bank account, because every time I go, I take a little.
The third mortgage payment
Oh,
comes
my
out?
God. It's just a massive number.
Sure.
I don't like paying it. I get that she doesn't want to pay for something she perceives that she doesn't need. I have life insurance. I'm not going to need life insurance. I'm going to be dead.
Sure.
Right? Disability insurance, same thing. I always enjoy people that are just banging on the door of cost because they perceive it as there's no value, right? There's no value to the relationship to them. Cost is only an issue to the extent there's no value.
What I guess the point of what this whole episode in Living Your Why to me is all about is recognizing that what we do for a living is help advise people and guide people through some of the most challenging decisions, some of the biggest, most daunting decisions they're ever going to make. And
planned
that,
and unplanned.
And that being my craft is something I have invested, you and I have invested in incredible, and I'm speaking for our whole industry. Everybody who sits in this seat with this licensing for this amount of time, with the willingness and desire to help people make these important decisions, invest time, energy, effort. You're not paying me for a transaction today. You're paying me for 30 years worth of experience in helping people make these decisions and guiding you through a similar path. It may be brand new and scary as shit to you, but it's something you and I have helped people for 30 years navigate successfully. And that is worth something. That is the value of having this kind of relationship when you are out there living your why. To know that I don't need to know how to do this, how to make this decision, or what the next right decision is. All I need to know is who to pick up the telephone and make a phone call to.
Once again, it comes back to the who.
Absolutely. So I absolutely love what we do. I love that we get to talk about it, share. It's, look.
Even 30 years later.
How many years of imposter syndrome did I live saddled with, oh my God, do I really help people? Am I really, oh no, if they only knew who I really was. I mean, it just, to know that's way back there, and I don't know a human that doesn't go through that at some point. But to wake up really realizing that I get up every day and go help people for a living, and then I get to come here in studio and talk about that so that we can help more people, it's pretty cool.
It's very cool. It's unbelievably rewarding.
So
fills my grateful bank every day.
Fantastic. As we've always said, we just show up and do our jobs, and some days we get paid by deposits in the bank account. Other days we get paid by deposits in the fulfillment account, and they're both fabulous and very rewarding. So thanks for hanging out with us here. We've put a bow around the financial planning aspect, where we've gone from unpacking the story from the very beginning through
defining.
Thank you. Holy cow.
Yeah, it's okay.
Defining
you were on a
the
plane
story
late last night.
I know, right? And early this morning, where we're defining that story and setting some pretty big goals based on what really matters most, and then ultimately getting in and shaping that story into these financial goals and directions and what Life 3.0 could possibly look like. And then once we get to that launching pad,
pop the champagne,
pressing that button, sending you out to live your why, and knowing that the relationship with your advisor is now only just beginning, because the real role of advisor is now beginning. There to walk with you through Life 3.0.
It's a privilege.
And with that, my friend,
that's a wrap.
Thanks for joining us today on the Whole Wealth Journey. Are you ready to start planning for a future that's rich in wealth and well-being? Then click like and subscribe, and make sure you don't miss a single episode of the Whole Wealth Journey.
So if we've struck a nerve with you today, where do people go?
You can find us at GebhardtWholeWealth.com. That's GEBHARDT, wholewealth.com. We'll see you next time.
Jim Gebhardt is a registered representative of Integrity Alliance, LLC. Securities and investment advisory services offered through Integrity Alliance, LLC, member SIPC. Gebhardt Group Incorporated is not affiliated with Integrity Wealth. Jim Gebhardt and Matthew Grishman are investment advisor representatives of Gebhardt Group Incorporated, a registered investment advisor. The opinions in this podcast are for informational purposes only and are not intended to provide specific advice or investment recommendations. To determine which investment or financial advice may be appropriate for you, consult a financial advisor prior to investing. Any reference to market performance is based on historical information, and there is no expressed or implied guarantee of future performance. Opinions expressed on this program do not necessarily reflect those of Integrity Alliance, LLC. The topics discussed and opinions given are not intended to address the specific needs of any listener. Gebhardt Group Incorporated does not offer legal or tax advice. Listeners are encouraged to discuss their financial needs with the appropriate professional regarding your individual circumstance.